print, email, Facebook, Twitter, more, escaping Laos and finding a new home among Melbourne's trams. Kongsanatavon Chandrafe escaped Laos by swimming 2 kilometers across the Mekong River into Thailand. It was 1978 and Laos was undergoing a political transformation after the royalist government fell to the communist Pathet Lao. Social laws were strict, and at just 16, after having a relationship with a fellow student, Mr. Chandrafe was jailed for 6 months. After that, the authorities never left him alone. He fled and spent 7 months in a Thai refugee camp before moving to Australia to join his brother, who had migrated in 1975. Mr. Chandrafe could barely speak English, and for almost a year he spent his days working in a Brunswick factory and his nights studying at free English classes in the city. As his English improved, he applied for a job as a trainee conductor with the Melbourne and Metropolitan Tramways Board, moving up from connie, conductor, to marmalade, a driver conductor, and then to a full-time tram driver. I had a go, and lucky enough they gave me a job. I was so grateful, he said. In my previous job, in the factory, I got called many names because people were still not accepting things. I was a stranger, I was an alien in some people's eyes, but the tramway board never looked at me like that. They just said everyone here is equal. It was like a brotherhood. In 1985, Mr. Chandrafe transferred to the Doncaster bus depot, where he continues to drive buses today. He said working on the trams, and public transport more generally, allowed him to communicate with people from all walks of life and develop a sense of community in his new home. For me, it's the best job. I mean, I'd like to be a professor or something, but this is all right for me. Mr. Chandrafe's nephew, Adam Chandler, has developed his own passion for Melbourne trams. He remembers seeing his uncle's green cap and jacket hanging in pristine condition on a coat rack at home. As a small child, Mr. Chandler interacted with the connies on routes 64 and 67 as he travelled to preschool or went shopping with his mum. He'd often sit in the front room of his house and watch the trams changing tracks in the South Cofield Junction right outside. He now runs the Melbourne Tram Museum. The city's tramway board had a long history of employing new migrants, dating back to before World War I, when it opened a recruitment office in London, Mr. Chandler said. In the past, they even offered free English classes for staff, including Mr. Chandler's uncle. Over time, it has reflected the changing mix of Australia, he said. Lots of English migration in the first instance, then after the World War you see a lot of Eastern European migrants come out. This was a very attractive job, it was very supportive. Stepping inside the museum in Hawthorne is like stepping back in time. You can wander through tram carriages from different eras, some of which are more than 100 years old. Mr. Chandler said the museum was seeking personal stories to sit alongside the physical memorabilia. Trams are the great leveler, public transport more broadly as well, he said. That's one thing we all share. The social history and those stories, those individual stories, are really captivating. ABC Radio Melbourne will broadcast from the Melbourne Tram Museum from 5:30 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. on May 23. It will mark 20 years since the last conductor rang the bell on Melbourne's trams. If you would like to be part of the audience, or would like to share your memories of the trams, visit the ABC Radio Melbourne